Imagine your wife cheating on you on your 32nd birthday with a seductive millionaire. Heartbroken, you decide to get revenge by building a successful empire with your own hands. When you finally prosper, the past resurfaces and you come face to face with your repentant ex-wife, begging for forgiveness. But some wounds are too deep to heal. Follow the gripping story of betrayal, resilience, and ambition of Arthur and Rachel. Rachel and Arthur were feeling the weight of the economic crisis. Married for over 10 years, they shared a modest life in a quiet neighborhood where every penny counted. In recent months, Arthur, an auto mechanic, had seen his work dwindle drastically due to the recession, leaving the couple struggling to keep up with the bills. Sitting together at the small kitchen table, they reviewed the bills once again, the dim light of the lamp casting long shadows over the papers. "I think we can cut here," Arthur said, pointing to a non-essential expense. Rachel nodded, but her expression was somber, her eyes fixed on the column of numbers that seemed to never decrease. "What if I take on a few more odd jobs?" she suggested, her voice laden with worry. Arthur took her hand, offering a weak but encouraging smile. "We'll get through this, like we always do," he promised, despite the uncertainty they both felt. With Arthur's 32nd birthday approaching, Rachel desperately wanted to bring some joy into their life, something to take them, even briefly, away from the stressful routine of financial worries. However, a quick glance at her bank account confirmed her worst fears. There was not enough money even for a small birthday cake. She opened the banking app on her phone with a heavy sigh, the digits on the screen only reinforcing the harsh reality. "Not even for a cake, Arthur. How can I make your special day without anything?" she lamented, almost talking to herself as he was in the shower. The frustration was evident in her voice, a mix of sadness and determination as she thought of alternatives. Arthur, overhearing her from afar, dried his hands and joined her, his arms encircling her from behind in a comforting embrace. "What matters is that we're together, Rachel. That's already a gift for me," he said, trying to alleviate the weight she carried. Determined not to let Arthur's birthday go by unnoticed, Rachel turned to the internet in search of creative ways to earn money quickly. As she browsed, she came across a variety of freelance jobs, from paid surveys to temporary work opportunities. But nothing seemed viable or lucrative enough for her urgent situation. Sitting in the cramped office they shared, with the computer light reflecting on her tired face, Rachel clicked from link to link, her hope dwindling with each new tab open. "Maybe this," she would murmur, clicking on a job offer that promised payment for data entry hours. However, upon reading the details and reviews from other users, her hope faded. "It's all scams or pays peanuts," she lamented, closing the laptop with more force than intended. Arthur, who had been watching her from the doorway, entered the small office, placing a hot cup of tea beside her. "Something will turn up, Rachel. Don't give up," he encouraged, gently squeezing her shoulders. It was then that, amidst her search, an ad in a dark corner of the internet caught her eye. The website promised substantial payments for high-end escorts, with the guarantee of total discretion and safety. After an internal struggle between her morals and her desperate need for money, Rachel made a decision she never thought herself capable of. She signed up on the site, adopting the name Eva. The computer screen illuminated her face as she filled out the registration form, each click an echo of her hesitation. "It's just for once, just for one night," she whispered to herself, trying to justify the decision. The silence of the house seemed to judge her, and she almost expected Arthur to walk in and discover it all at that very moment. But he was out, trying to secure more work, and she was alone, navigating morally murky waters to try and salvage their financial situation. Almost immediately after her registration, she was contacted by Dave, a successful businessman in the high-end real estate sector, known for his generosity with the escorts he hired. Dave was interested in her company for a night, promising an amount that would cover their expenses for the next few months. With a heavy heart, but driven by necessity, Rachel accepted the meeting, scheduling it for the night of Arthur's birthday. As she typed her affirmative response, her hands trembled slightly over the keyboard. "I'll be there, Eva," she typed, feeling a mixture of relief and dread. Dave's reply was almost instantaneous, a simple, perfect EVA. "I'm looking forward to our night." The weight of his words left Rachel breathless. She rose, walked over to the window, and looked up at the night sky, searching for some sign that she was doing the right thing, but only the indifferent stars shone back. On the day of Arthur's birthday, Rachel, dressed in her best outfit, met up with Dave at a luxurious city hotel. She knew her appearance was simple compared to what was typically expected in such circles, but Dave didn't seem to mind. With a welcoming smile, he greeted her warmly, and sensing her discomfort with the surroundings, suggested a quick change of plans. "You look beautiful, Rachel, but I have something special in mind for tonight," Dave said, gently guiding her by the arm. They walked over to a waiting car outside and drove to a high-end boutique. As she stepped inside, Rachel felt as if she had entered a completely different world, filled with glamour and elegance she had only seen in movies. "Choose whatever you like. It's all on me," Dave announced, encouraging her with a generous wave towards the stunning pieces on display. Surrounded by fine fabrics and dazzling designs, Rachel chose the most expensive pieces with Dave's help, who insisted she not worry about the prices. "Don't think about the costs today, Rachel. What matters is that you feel special," Dave said with an encouraging smile, offering her an elegant sky blue silk dress that caught the soft light of the boutique, making it shimmer subtly. As Rachel tried on the dress, the softness of the fabric against her skin made her feel as if she were in a dream. "I can really choose anything here?" she asked, her voice low, mingled with admiration and a hint of disbelief. "Of course," Dave replied with a confident nod to the approaching saleswoman, who carried even more luxurious options. "Tonight is all yours. Enjoy." Dressed in elegance, Rachel accompanied Dave to the most expensive restaurant in the city. As they dined on exquisite dishes, she couldn't help but compare this new experience to her life with Arthur. With each shared laugh and each of Dave's success stories, Rachel found herself increasingly drawn to this life of luxury and ease, so far removed from the reality she faced at home. The restaurant's ambience was enveloping, with soft music playing in the background and candles casting a warm glow over the well-set table. "You seem to be enjoying your new world," Dave commented, observing her with interest as she savored a lobster dish. "It's all so different, so dazzling," she admitted, her eyes shining and reflecting the soft lights of the restaurant. Dave smiled, toasting with her to new experiences, he proposed, and she, though with a tinge of guilt in her heart, toasted in response. As the night progressed, Rachel began to question her life choices. The ease with which Dave maneuvered through the world, his charisma and confidence, all made her reconsider what was truly worth it. Arthur, with all his struggles and simplicity, seemed less appealing with every moment she spent by Dave's side. Sitting at the table in the most secluded corner of the restaurant, observing the other tables occupied by couples in lively conversation, Rachel felt a mixture of admiration and restlessness. "I'm starting to see the world in a completely different way," she commented, her voice low, almost lost in the ambient music. Dave, sensing the change in her tone, leaned forward, offering her an encouraging smile. "It's natural to feel that way when faced with new possibilities," he said, holding her hand for a moment. "Think of it as a door opening for you." At the end of the dinner, Dave, noticing the change in Rachel's demeanor, offered her a proposition. to spend more time with him in exchange for a lifestyle she only dreamed of. As the city glowed in the distance through the restaurant's windows, Rachel felt torn between her love and loyalty to Arthur and the tempting promise of a new, worry-free life by Dave's side. "Rachel, think about what we can build together. You would never have to worry about money or instability again," Dave suggested, his voice smooth and persuasive. He extended a velvet box, opening it to reveal a set of apartment keys. "This is yours, if you want it." Rachel looked at the keys, then at the city lights, their glow reflecting the turmoil in her heart. "I need to think," she murmured, feeling the weight of her decision as the waiter brought the check, sealing the night with one last exchange of glances between them. After accepting Dave's proposition, Rachel made a drastic decision. She deleted Arthur's number from her phone and turned it off, symbolizing the definitive cut from her previous life. She was resolute in her new path, alongside Dave, a future filled with luxury and free from the constant financial worries that had plagued her. As she tucked the phone away in her purse, her heart beat with a mixture of excitement and guilt. "This is what's best for me. I deserve this," she tried to convince herself, repeating the words like a mantra. Dave watched her with an approving smile, rising to guide her out of the restaurant. "Let's start a new life, Rachel. A life you deserve," he said, offering his arm as they walked out, the cool night air welcoming them with promises of new beginnings. After weighing her entire life, Rachel accepted Dave's proposition and made a drastic decision. She deleted Arthur's number from her phone and turned it off, symbolizing the definitive cut from her previous life. She was resolute in her new path alongside Dave, a future filled with luxury and free from the constant financial worries that had plagued her. As she tucked the phone away in her purse, her heart beat with a mixture of excitement and guilt. "This is what's best for me. I deserve this," she tried to convince herself, repeating the words like a mantra. Dave watched her with an approving smile, rising to guide her out of the restaurant. "Let's start a new life, Rachel. A life you deserve," he said, offering his arm as they walked out, the cool night air welcoming them with promises of new beginnings. Meanwhile, Arthur, who was expecting to celebrate his birthday with his wife, realized he was alone. Initially, he tried to convince himself that Rachel was just running late, but as the hours ticked by, worry grew. Remembering Rachel had mentioned visiting her mother's house, he decided to call her, only to be met with the silence of a turned-off phone. The silence echoed in his mind, each unanswered ring increasing his discomfort. Sitting on the couch, he stared at the phone, waiting for any sign of her. With a heavy sigh, he rose, determined to find out what had happened. He grabbed his car keys and headed out, the night still young and the streets quiet, reflecting his growing sense of desolation. With desperation mounting, Arthur decided to go to Rachel's mother's house, hoping to find some explanation. Upon arrival, Rachel's mother, confused and worried, informed him that her daughter had not been there. Feeling a tightness in his chest, Arthur resorted to the last resource he had, Rachel's shared location on her phone. The last recorded location was at the city's most upscale restaurant. He looked at the phone screen, his brow furrowing in confusion and alarm. Why would she be there? He murmured to himself, the gears of his mind turning rapidly as he headed back to his car. The drive to the restaurant seemed endless, each red light an eternity, as his mind tried to piece the puzzle together. Heading to the location, Arthur's heart raced, mixing anxiety and dread. Upon arrival, he observed the luxurious setting, feeling out of place and increasingly distressed. He walked through the restaurant, his eyes desperately searching for Rachel, until a waiter, noticing his worried demeanor, approached to assist. "Can I help you, sir? Are you looking for someone?" the waiter asked with a concerned expression. Arthur, hesitant, quickly described Rachel. The waiter paused, his expression subtly changing. "I think I saw who you're looking for." "She was accompanied," he said in a low voice, leaning in to ensure privacy. Arthur felt a knot form in his stomach. "Accompanied by whom?" he asked, his voice almost a whisper, dreading the answer. The waiter, sensing Arthur's urgency, discreetly informed him that Rachel had been there, accompanied by a man who seemed influential. The waiter's words confirmed Arthur's fears, leaving him with a mixture of anger and desolation. Feeling betrayed and abandoned, he left the restaurant, his mind turbulent, trying to decide what his next step would be. As he walked back to his car, the cool night breeze seemed to cut deeper than usual. "How could she do this to me on my birthday?" he murmured to himself, each step an echo of his confusion and pain. Tears of frustration threatened to surface, but he repressed them, focusing on controlling the anger that boiled within. He needed to think clearly, but the betrayal consumed him, each thought more bitter than the one before. A year passed since Rachel left Arthur on his birthday. With no news from her, he channeled his energy and frustration into a new venture, a luxury clothing brand. In partnership with a business partner, Arthur saw his business take off, attracting the attention of major investors. Within a few months, the brand became one of the most renowned in the luxury market, a true success story born from the ashes of his personal life. With each new launch, each fashion show, Arthur's brand gained more recognition and respect. He attended gala events and cocktail parties, where his presence was now not only accepted but expected. "It's amazing how things have changed," he reflected, as he prepared for yet another meeting with potential investors. The wound of her betrayal still stung, but his focus on work provided a refuge, a place to rebuild his life and self-esteem. While Arthur prospered, Dave faced a very different fate. His investments failed, and a massive debt began to consume him. With no alternative, he was forced to pull out all of his investments, including the luxurious lifestyle he had provided for Rachel. In no time, Dave's reality crumbled, leading him to a desperate financial situation. He spent sleepless nights, poring over papers and more papers, trying to find a way out that seemed increasingly distant. How could everything collapse so quickly? He lamented alone in his dark office, the desk lamp's light accentuating the worry lines on his face. Rachel, witnessing Dave's downfall, felt increasingly isolated and fearful for the future, a stark contrast to the security she had imagined having by his side. Rachel, unsure of how to cope with the sudden turn of events, found refuge in shopping. With the little money she had left, she went to a luxury clothing store, trying to drown her sadness in expensive fabrics and fashionable accessories. As she picked out pieces she could barely afford, a massive billboard outside the store caught her attention. It was Arthur's face, now the face of one of the most coveted brands in the fashion world. How did he do it? She wondered, touching the cold glass that separated her from Arthur's image, her heart aching with a mixture of admiration and remorse. The irony of the situation struck her deeply. The man she had left in pursuit of financial security now symbolized the success she craved. Inside the store, the luxurious clothes lost their luster, and she felt increasingly out of place and regretful. The shock was immense. There was Arthur, no longer the simple, struggling man she had left, but a symbol of success and sophistication. The irony of the situation was palpable. The brand that now represented one of Rachel's favorite choices, the one she desired, even in the direst circumstances, was the creation of the man she had abandoned. As she stared at the billboard, feeling a pang of pain each time her eyes passed over Arthur's confident image, a saleswoman approached, noticing her fixed gaze. "He's amazing, isn't he? Revolutionized fashion with his brand," said the saleswoman, unaware she was speaking of Rachel's ex-husband. "Yes, he is," Rachel responded, her voice faltering slightly. He always had great potential. Turning back to the clothes, he tried to distract herself. But the image of a successful and happy Arthur without her continued to haunt her, a constant reminder of the choices she had made and the consequences she now faced. Rachel left the store empty-handed, her heart heavier than when she had entered. The image of a triumphant and accomplished Arthur contrasted sharply with that of Dave, now a man broken by debt and poor decisions. She wondered about the choices she had made, about the love she had spurned and the luxury she had sought, now evaporating like a mere ghost of her former dreams. Walking slowly down the street, the city lights blinking indifferently around her, Rachel felt lost, as if each step was taking her further away from the world she had once thought she could belong to. "What have I done with my life?" she murmured to herself, tears beginning to form in the corners of her eyes as she reflected on the loneliness her own selfishness had brought. The life she had envisioned as a fairy tale was now crumbling, leaving her to face the harsh reality of her choices. In a desperate search for reconciliation, Rachel retraced the path back to her former life, asking friends and family about Arthur's whereabouts. The answers were evasive or surprised by her sudden interest. But Rachel's persistence finally led a reluctant friend to reveal Arthur's new address, located in one of the city's most affluent neighborhoods. Filled with a mixture of hope and nervousness, Rachel drove to the address given her. Upon arrival, her heart raced as she saw Arthur emerging from the luxury condominium, getting into a shimmering blue Lamborghini under the setting sun. She ran toward him, calling out his name with a trembling voice. "Arthur, please, we need to talk," she pleaded as he stopped, stunned to see her. Trying to contain her emotions, she approached, her hands shaking slightly. "I know it looks bad, but it was all a misunderstanding. I can explain," she said quickly, hoping for any sign of openness from him. Arthur stopped the car and rolled down the window, facing Rachel for the first time since her departure. Her hopeful, desperate gaze met his calm, controlled one. "Arthur," Rachel began to say, her voice trembling. I miss you so much." Arthur remained impassive, his eyes betraying no emotion. It was then that Rachel looked at the passenger next to Arthur and her world stopped again. It was Victoria, the girl she hated as a child, known for her beauty, and now, apparently, Arthur's new companion. Victoria smiled disdainfully at Rachel. "Hello, Rachel. It's been a while, hasn't it?" Rachel felt the tears burning in her eyes, jealousy and pain lacerating her heart. Arthur still remained silent, observing the scene with an impenetrable expression. The heavy silence was broken only by the sound of passing cars on the busy street. Arthur's smile, seeing Rachel's reaction, was one of pure satisfaction. Putting on his sunglasses, he rolled up the car window, encapsulating himself in his new successful life and leaving Rachel on the outside, alone. "It wasn't easy getting here, Rachel," Arthur said, his voice cold and cutting. "You left me, remember? Now I have everything I've ever wanted, and you're no longer a part of it." Victoria laughed cruelly, staring at Rachel with contempt. Rachel felt the tears stream down her face, unable to say anything in the face of such overwhelming rejection. With a powerful acceleration, Arthur drove off, leaving Rachel in tears on the sidewalk, the image of the blue Lamborghini disappearing into the distance. She stood there, watching the car vanish, feeling as if a part of her had been ripped away forever. The noise of the city seemed distant, muffled by the buzzing in her ears and the frantic beating of her broken heart. In that moment, Rachel realized she had lost Arthur in an irreparable way, and the void that loss left within her seemed endless. Rachel stood there, helpless, tears flowing freely, as the reality of her choices and their consequences finally hit her. The life she had tried to build with Dave had crumbled, and the life she had abandoned with Arthur had flourished without her. Dave's empty promises, his brazen lies, it all came flooding back as she watched Arthur's car disappear over the horizon. "What have I done?" she murmured to herself, regret consuming her from within. "How could I throw it all away for nothing?" The irony of fate crushed her, realizing that choices made out of desperation often lead to irretrievable losses. Rachel felt like an empty shell, all her hopes and dreams having been ripped from her in that devastating moment. The noise of the city continued around her, people rushing by in their lives, oblivious to Rachel's torment. She felt small and insignificant, a mere shadow of what she once was. With a broken heart, Rachel knew she would have to move on, as difficult as it might be, carrying the weight of her choices forever. And you? What would you do in Arthur's place after discovering that your wife cheated on you for money and then came begging for forgiveness? Comment here what you would do. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next story.